Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we have an awesome figure to take a look at, as we've got a brand new PNSO release, and as you can quite clearly see, we are going to check out this Suchomimus. And I'm really psyched about this one because it's been a little while since we've had a good Suchomimus figure come along, and really there aren't very many at all out there to begin with, so a PNSO version is obviously something to be very excited about. And I also really quite like the paint scheme that we have for this one. You know, PNSO kind of switching it up a little bit with this one, but I think that their paint schemes always look really good and really nice and natural. Like, they have yet to release a figure that was a coloration that I couldn't see actually being on the animal. So again, they always do a great job as far as that goes. The box art pretty much here on the top shows a nice image here of the Suchomimus, and then if you flip it around again, it's pretty much the exact same thing. So let's pop this box open and check it out. So as always, we've got ourselves our little booklet here that of course is going to include all sorts of really nice imagery of the Suchomimus, as well as tons of information on the dinosaur, on the species, something that PNSO always does. Wow, look at that. That is beautiful. And, you know, I really like the fact that it is actually the same color scheme that we have here for our Suchomimus, which is something that you don't often see when PNSO kind of releases artwork like this. It's usually a different type of color scheme compared to the one that we actually have as far as the color scheme on the figure. And this time it actually is the same color scheme, which is really cool. But again, as you lead through, you'll see all kinds of really cool images, all kinds of really cool information on the Suchomimus. Definitely a very good read as always. And then we've got our poster, and the poster looks like it's going to be the same image that we had just seen potentially. So once we open it up, which actually is like the perfect image that I would want for the Suchomimus, and you can quite clearly see already, that is exactly what we have here. We have a big, nice poster here of the image that we had just seen there on the inside of the booklet, and I think that honestly looks amazing. Like, that straight up looks like a real living Suchomimus. So super cool to have that image as the poster, and definitely, again, another very much so frame-worthy poster from PNSO. But if we get this out of the way, as always, we have our little stand here that comes with our dinosaur just to make sure it can stand. And then we've got the Suchomimus itself, which hasn't quite been revealed from its plastic quite yet. If we can get it out, there we go. And that is absolutely gorgeous. First of all, the paint application looks super lifelike. The sculpt is fantastic, but the coloration on the face is so much more vibrant than I thought it was going to be. That coloration on the face is so beautiful. Like, it really highlights the face of the dinosaur in an extremely realistic and flashy way. Man, that is awesome. PNSO, as always, continues to just blow my mind with how good their figures are. And yet again, I think we're looking here at the definitive version of a Suchomimus, so let's jump straight to a closer look at it right now. So starting up here at the head sculpt of the Suchomimus, again, you can really see what I was talking about as far as the coloration that they've used. Like, that is incredibly flashy looking, but yet again applied in a really natural way. I absolutely love the coloration of the face. Can't even begin to describe how much I love that flashy color there in the face, but of course the very naturalistic tones for the majority of the body, but the flashiness here with those really nice greens and oranges and everything looks excellent. You can also see, though, outside of that beautiful flashy coloration, we have some really nice looking skin texture for the majority of the face here for our Suchomimus. You can also see the eyes painted with a yellow, given a nice black pupil, and also has a nice gloss coat added to it. And you can also take notice to the nostrils. You can also actually see quite a bit of color variation here in the face outside of those flashy colors, because we can kind of see like some lighter and darker tones of the gray, and they transition back and forth really nicely. And one thing that PNSO has done for this figure that they do quite often, and I absolutely love it, is they've given it a nice kind of like a light tannish wash, and I think it just adds such a beautiful element of realism to their figures all the time. Takes the figure from looking like a model that's been painted up and kind of turns it into a living, breathing creature. Of course, we do have an articulated jaw. You can see it can open quite nicely, quite wide. The teeth look really good. All of the teeth appear to be, for the most part, sculpted individually. We've got some really small teeth here. If my camera would focus on it, if I can stop smacking the camera, but some really small teeth there for the lower jaw, and then of course some larger teeth there at the end of the jaw. You can also see the tongue is sculpted out there on the inside of the mouth. Everything has a very nice realistic paint application, and I love that. Again, if you look over here, you can see a nice, oh man, if my camera would stay focused on this, you could see a nice pinkish tone for the inside of the mouth, but there on the tongue, you could see that pink, but also a reddish wash. And then if you move down, there's again more of that pink, but they also seem to have applied some color variation in there as well with, some alternate tones of color, potentially a wash. Same deal there for the inside of the mouth on the upper side. And you can also see again that it genuinely looks like the Suchomimus has a throat back there. Like, it doesn't look like it ends. It looks like a real animal's throat. Again, really, really cool. And that articulated jaw works super nicely, super smoothly. You can see no matter where you put it, it stays perfectly. So really nice, and it also closes perfectly. As you start to lead back here into the neck, you can see that we have quite a bit of kind of skin creasing, skin wrinkling, and everything going on. Because if you look at the Suchomimus, it has its head turned to the right and also kind of turned in a downward position slightly. So you can see that there's wrinkling in the throat as well as the side of the neck. We also have all sorts of really nice looking scales, as well as some slightly larger, almost osteoderm-like scales. And again, we have the nice variations of grays, as well as that light tannish wash, making all the detail pop. And a super smooth transition as we move here to the underside, with kind of a light variation of a brown. And you can also see that we have the throat sculpted out. And look at the skin detail in the neck and throat region. That is phenomenal. Like, it honestly looks like a living, breathing animal. PNSO always just blows my mind with how good the sculpt and paint is on their figures. I also love that I see some slight hints of like pinkish tones, and you see more of it here as you move down into the chest of the Suchomimus, which is really cool. Again, just really subtle variations of color like that always make their figures go from, again, looking like a model to a living, breathing animal. As you move down, especially here at the bottom of the neck, you see more kind of skin wrinkling and skin creasing leading down into the body. You can kind of make out the shoulder blade, but not too much. But as you move down, you can definitely see some nice muscle definition there in the arm. You can also see that the scale detail is really quite fine there up in the side of the animal, up in the stomach and everything, leading down. But you start to get some larger scales here as you lead down into the arm. And again, they kind of diminish as you reach this area, but then pick back up again as you lead down here into the hand. And that scale detail looks great. It really does. And of course, that light wash has been applied to really make the detail pop. As you move down into the finger sculpts themselves are beautifully sculpted, and you also have some really nicely sculpted nails and nicely painted nails. I love that the nails are kind of dark. As you lead into the nails, it's dark, and then transitions to a lighter variation of a brown as you lead out. And they also kind of have like a slight glossy look to them, which again is something you would definitely see on an animal's nails. As you move up here into the stomach region, yet again, you can really make out how nice and smooth the transition is from the gray to the lighter underbelly. You can also see a ton more skin detail here with skin wrinkles and creases and everything. Even behind the arm, some skin wrinkles, of course, right here in front of the thigh. As the dinosaur takes a step forward, you can see how it's kind of wrinkling up the stomach there as far as that skin goes. And again, more really nice kind of osteoderms, as well as some fantastic paintwork throughout. And then you start to pick up this stripe. And I like how it's a darker variation of a brown, but really smoothly transitions to a lighter variation of brown as you lead out over the hip region. You can also take notice to the spinal column here, running along the back of the animal, leading down into the thigh. Again, nice muscle definition in the thigh and calf region, as well as lots of skin wrinkles here behind and in front of the thigh. Just making sure that we have every ounce of movement covered on this dinosaur. You've got a kneecap present right here, and as you move down, you have a beautiful, very bird-like foot sculpt for your Suchomimus, and look at how incredibly nice looking the positioning of the toes is here, as the dinosaur's just lifting its foot, or about to plant its foot, actually. I would say probably planting its foot, but it looks really, really cool. You've got some nice detail there running down the toes, and again, some fantastic paintwork throughout. And the nails are painted in a very similar way to what we saw in the hands, but rather than darkening and leading out into a lighter tone of color, it's just that lighter tone of a brown, and it looks really, really good. You can also see a dew claw, and then again a dew claw over here for the opposing foot. But as you lead up here, you can see some more skin wrinkles and stuff here as you lead up into the tail. And look at how nice this stripe is. Again, that is about as realistically applied as it could possibly get. And you can even see like darker variations of grays and kind of lighter variations of grays as you move through. You again continue to have the really nice scale detail, more kind of osteoderms and stuff as you lead out. And then once we reach the tail, we have a very nice striping again with that lighter tone, which yet again is applied in the absolute most realistic and natural way possible, giving the tail that really nice flashy look, but again, really nice naturalistic tones. We also have a beautiful curve for the tail, very majestic looking curve as you move through. And then you can see here as we move along the underside, you've got the cloaca present, more of those pinkish tones showing up. Again, something PNSO is really, really good at is applying really subtle variation of color to their figures to make them look as lifelike as possible. You can even see kind of like a darker wash that's applied here to the underside of the figure. But again, it's not applied in a really like overbearing sort of a way. It's just about as perfectly applied as it gets. And then as you lead over here to the opposing side of the face, yet again, you can see how nice that coloration is there on the face, as well as how beautiful the sculpt is. And again, a really nice color variation throughout. We've got a perfectly painted eye yet again. As you lead back here into the neck, you start to again see all the skin wrinkles and skin movement. Again, considering the turn in the neck for our Suchomimus, you also see more of that really nice paintwork with the grays and that light wash creeping through all of the incredible skin texture. As you move down, you can see the arm is in almost a similar position, but the further arm is definitely out a little bit further. This one's held a little closer into the body and doesn't have quite as sharp of a turn or bend in the elbow. You can really see how nice that scale detail looks, though, running down the course of the arm down into those fingers. And again, as you lead back here, you can actually see a slight variation of brown here underneath the gray as we transition to the lighter tone. But you can see, again, just incredible looking paintwork throughout. We again have that stripe picking up right here. You can also see the skin stretching off of the stomach very nicely because this leg is trailing, so it would definitely be stretching the skin off of the stomach. You can pick out the kneecap here. Nice muscle definition, again moving down the course of the leg. But again, another instance of PNSO really paying attention to the fine details here. You can see this foot is about to pick up off the ground. This foot is planting. This foot is leaving the ground. So you're not seeing a whole lot of tensing here in the leg compared to what we saw on the other side, because this leg is currently like beginning to support the weight. This is about to relieve the leg of the weight of the dinosaur. So you can see that again, the muscles aren't quite as tensed as what we had seen on the initial side. As you lead out, though, you can see again more wrinkling and stuff right there behind the leg, and then you'll lead out to that really, really nice looking curved tail with that beautiful striping again the entire way out. So just as I expected, this is definitely the best Suchomimus in my collection, and definitely as beautiful, or maybe even more beautiful, than I expected it to be, because PNSO always continues to not only knock it straight out of the park with each and every release, but in my opinion, they honestly one-up themselves with every release, and I feel like they really have done that yet again with this Suchomimus. Another good thing about our Suchomimus is it stands very nicely currently. Again, you never know how good a figure is going to stand straight out of the box. It takes time for the legs to really, show off their true nature again, and whether they bow or not, but that's why they include the little plastic stand. However, you can currently see I do not need it. The figure stands beautifully without. For a size, as far as a length goes, you're looking at pretty much right around 11.5 inches, or about 29 centimeters. Closing in on, I wouldn't even say closing in, just a little bit over 29 centimeters, not quite 29.5. And then for a height, about 3¼ inches or just shy of 8.5 centimeters. For a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, and Robert Muldoon next to our PNSO Suchomimus. And this should definitely help to give you an idea of the fact that the figure is, I would say, like a strong medium size range. For your Suchomimus, you can obviously tell that there next to Muldoon and the Colovosaurus, but also with Mr. Papo Rex, who you can see again kind of towers over the Suchomimus. But for another comparison, and just a quick one with the randoms that I've been using lately with the Schleich Diabloceratops, the Safari LTDU Tyrannus, and Collectae Dimetrodon, just to kind of take a few of the more popular brands out there and squash them with a size comparison here next to our Suchomimus, in case these are a figure, maybe one of the figures, maybe all of the figures you might own, then hopefully this will help to give you again an idea of the size. And here is our Suchomimus next to the PNSO Cynopliosaurus. So we've got two very similar species here, and you can see that they actually size up next to each other, like honestly, like perfect. They're definitely the same size overall, I would say. The only big difference would be the size of the tail, because obviously we've got a paddle-like tail on our Cynopliosaurus. But for another comparison, here is the more recent offering for the Spinosaurus from PNSO. An absolutely incredible looking Spinosaurus, but you can see it actually is a little bit smaller than our Suchomimus is. So definitely a little bit larger would be the Suchomimus compared to our Spinosaurus. I think if the Spinosaurus were outstretched, you would obviously see the Spino being a bit larger, definitely longer. But since it's not, and like the tail's curled, the neck's curled, it's a little bit smaller in length than the Suchomimus. Then we've got everyone's favorite T-Rex, as we have Wilson here next to the Suchomimus, and you can clearly see Wilson is a good bit larger than our Suchomimus, like you would expect Wilson to be. But for one more comparison, here is potentially PNSO's best figure ever, the Dinosaur, next to our Suchomimus. And you can see the Dinosaur obviously is a good bit larger, but I would definitely rate this Suchomimus very, very high up on the ladder. As far as my favorites that PNSO has ever released, right there with the Dinosaur. Honestly, it might equal as far as my love for the Suchomimus next to our Dinosaur. So that should really show you again just how impressive of a figure this Suchomimus is. Then we've got the PNSO Centrosaurus here next to the Suchomimus. Obviously, you can see our Centrosaurus is much smaller, again like you would expect it to be. And then the final comparison, because we could do this all day, especially with the sheer number of PNSO figures that are out, but we've got the Olera Titan from PNSO as well next to the Suchomimus, just for one final comparison. So this brand new PNSO Suchomimus is absolutely beautiful, and without question, one of my favorite PNSO releases of all time. Again, I rate this just as highly as I do the Dinosaur because it is gorgeous. First of all, they've given it a really, really nice, very highly detailed sculpt. I expected no less being PNSO, but I'm still always so blown away by how much detail and how much realism to the detail they managed to cram into the sculpts. Again, it looks like a legit living, breathing Suchomimus here before me as far as both the sculpt and paint. And speaking of the paint is fantastic on this, like as lifelike and as natural as it gets. And of course, they've given this that really nice light wash, which ties all of the paintwork and coloration together so nicely and also adds another element of realism to the figure that I feel like is one of the many things that sets PNSO above so many other companies and really makes them a cut above the rest. All of the transitions are super smooth on this, and again, when it comes to like striping and stuff, I feel like nobody does it better than PNSO, especially when it comes to the actual application of the paint, because I couldn't imagine any way possible to make it look any more smooth, any more realistic and natural than what we have here on this Suchomimus. Honestly, it is like a professional paleo artist grade paint job on this Suchomimus. On top of that, I really like the pose. The pose is just the dinosaur walking along, but it's really beautifully done. Very nice elegance to the pose, and overall shows off the beauty, I think, of Suchomimus as a whole. And then you also have an articulated jaw, which is also fun, and it works perfectly. So again, a huge recommendation from me. Definitely one of the best PNSO figures ever, in my opinion. So I will include a link in the description to where you can purchase this on both the Amazon PNSO store and the Aliexpress PNSO store. So make sure you pick this up from one of those two sites, and make sure you also like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.